thoughtful ideas and suggestions for guests and topics.
Great events, programs, and
All the countries and research.
Welcome to this week's segment of Dialogue Houston. I'm your host, Lawrence Payne. For those joining us perhaps for the first time here for HCC's TV Dialogue Houston, we can be found now every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Again on Saturday afternoons at 3 p.m. As always, at the top of the hour, let me thank you for your thoughtful calls, emails, and text messages concerning previous shows we've aired here on HCC's TV Dialogue Houston. For after all, this is your community affairs, public affairs show here on our wonderful channel now in its 26th season. We have a great show lined up for you today. We're going to look at aspects, something that's very dear to my heart, and that's the Veterans Program for U.S. Vets that deals a lot with homeless veterans. As you know, I ran Search for the Homeless here for a few years and really got to understand and cherish the challenges that that population has in trying to just every day cope and survive as human beings. The situation in the picture has gotten much better, and our guest is going to help us explain how that has happened and what you can still do going forward to help. But it is that issue of homelessness in our community that we truly have to understand for all the aspects of it. And as we've said many times on this show over the 26 seasons with guests dealing with the homeless issue and population here in our city, we've had a little bit of everyone, the Health Care for the Homeless Coalition, you name it over the years. But my guest I'm really excited about having on Oskar Gonzalez, who is with U.S. Vets. They're really doing some outstanding work in helping the veteran, the homeless vet, not only to get off the street and to get shelter and to get a roof over his head or her head, but also getting the other services they need, not just to survive, but to begin to thrive as human beings, because that's really what it's all about, to be able to really move forward to that next level as a human being. Oskar, welcome.
Thank you.
So great to have you.
Thank you for having me.
So tell us, this is one of those things in our community that's so important to focus on and to understand really kind of what's going on in that arena.
Yes, homelessness can affect veterans, of all genders, all ways of life, and that's something that U.S. Vets is definitely here for in Houston, is to help all veterans. And we don't only service homeless veterans anymore, we also service those veterans who are at risk of becoming homeless.
Yeah, because sometimes they're just barely on that border lines. So the homeless vet population in this city has decreased. A lot of it has to do with the hard work and dedication of the partnership and teams that you work with through U.S. Vets to make that happen.
Yes, and that's been a long journey. I have been with U.S. Vets for over 10 years. I started off with them as a van driver, and then from there have moved up through their ranks and into the position that I have now as their outreach coordinator. When I started with U.S. Vets and we were looking at the encampments and the population on the streets, it started off at about 3,000 veterans on any given night that you would find on the streets of Houston. Over the years, housing has increased, affordable housing, transitional programs have come into place, mental health initiatives have started for veterans, and with that, we have seen a decrease in the population. Now you will find about 100 on any given night.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the biggest misnomer about the person on the street who the public sees as homeless as they drive by?
The biggest misnomer that they see is that, one, let's talk about that image, right? A lot of times you will never recognize a homeless individual. They look just like anybody else. They could look like a student going to work, or a student going to school, or an employee going to work. Not all homeless people are with soiled clothing or bad haircuts or things like that. A lot of them most definitely take care of themselves hygienically. They shower every morning or they shower every evening. They make sure that their clothes is clean, that they are presentable. because in that they're going through looking for work, you know, they're looking for housing, you know, they're trying to get through life just the same way that we are.
Right.
So a lot of people come across homeless individuals every day of their life and don't even
So let's talk a minute about the stereotype of the homeless person on the corner, with or without the sign, begging, because there's a difference, and I want you to help people understand. There's a difference between a truly homeless person, who may or may not be that person that you see on the corner, and the professional beggar and the professional panhandler. There are some people that go out every day, stand on those corners, look the way they look on purpose. They may have even drove to the spot that they work on a frequent basis, car parked three blocks, 2 blocks around the corner, walk over to their corner, work their corner, get back in their car and go home. And you have a lot of that in Houston. So tell us how that kind of plays out, because it doesn't help people who are really trying to help those who are truly homeless to have these, and some of the most aggressive ones that people complain about sometimes are not the homeless. It's this other category.
Right. So one of the things that that we do is we have an initiative where folks can call or text in a location where they have seen a homeless veteran.
Okay.
So if you're standing at the street light and you don't know, you know, this person is saying homeless vet.
Right.
You know, you don't know, you want to give them something, but you just don't know.
Right.
Right. The safest thing we always tell people is call this phone number. Text this phone
Very
number,
good.
let us know where it was, and then we'll send an outreach team member out there to assess the situation. More than likely, the person who is at the street sign, I say civilian, but the driver, whoever, they don't recognize the person. All of your outreach teams, they know everybody that is on the street, so they are the ones that prevent that professional panhandler from being out on the streets.
Okay.
So now most of the population that you see are people that are in need. Okay. Because from agencies like Coalition from the Homeless, we have several people who are out there. From Search, from our outreach team, Salvation Army.
We know the records. Yeah.
Several of them. They're out there and they're doing these amazing assessments. You know, so they know the population that's out there. They know the community. The biggest thing that we find out there is that a lot of the folks who are out there, they do not have an income.
Yes.
You know, so if we talk about part of the culture, I can tell you from my experience, I have seen homeless people where they gather at particular street corners, and that street corner is theirs, and they have maybe a series of 4 people that are working that corner. Right. And a lot of people think, oh, I'm not going to give them this money because they're going to go use drugs or whatever. We have seen those same people go buy food with them. You know, they go buy
and they share with each other.
And they share with everybody. It's amazing. And they'll utilize a public park. You know, they'll go buy a bag of charcoal and some chicken breasts, you know, and some vegetables, and they will cook those things for everybody. And I wish more people could see that. Yes. You know, I wish more people could see. I mean, they're very
sharing, giving a bunch of human beings.
And I say that to say this: the same way that there are many different dynamics in a household, there are several different dynamics on the streets as well. There's a person who's at home that's drinking. Well, there's a person on the street that's drinking. There's a person at home that's cooking their meal. There's a person on the street that is also cooking their meal. You know, there are the same dynamics. It just then at that point in time comes down to, for the one seeing it, compassion and understanding. You know, do you understand where the individual is coming from? Are they coming from a place of addiction, mental health? You know, where are they coming from?
And that's why the more we can educate the public to actually the realities, plural, that's involved in all of this.
Yeah, and I challenge Houstonians when they have a free time to get involved with the outreach teams. It's one thing to say, oh, I want to help the homeless and drop off some clothes and some toiletries. It's another thing to say, take me with your outreach team and let me see.
There you go.
Let me hand out the hygiene kit that I gave. You know? And you learn a lot from those experiences.
Because sometimes it's not as beneficial as people think it is to pull up to a corner with a car, a van full of stuff, and just start willy-nilly giving it out. That's really not as helpful as people think it is.
Yeah, it's not because there's already Houston is amazing with their outreach teams.
Right.
There are so many resources being given to the homeless. The part that is left out when the Good Samaritan does that is the connection to resources.
Yes.
An outreach team member is going to go out and give you the toiletries, but also they're going to make that real connection and say,
Right.
what's your plan?
Yeah.
Or what is your need?
Right.
Do you need mental health? Do you need medical attention?
Right.
I love our UT nurses because they can come out with us and they can clean infections.
Oh, yeah.
Or teach
Right.
people,
Right.
how to do those things, just
Right.
little things.
And the Good Samaritan who really, out of the kindness of their heart, we understand that, trying to do the right thing. But really, many times there's no relationship, there's no real connection made. You're doing it, and many times people do it, and some church groups do it from a charity standpoint. It's because it's the right thing to do, it feels good to do. But you and I both know, if you really want to get involved, particularly as an organized group, say church, when I say church, church, parish, temple, synagogue, and mosque, Friday, Saturday, Sunday worship, I don't really care, it's all the same. Then you have to get involved around the issues around systemic change, around eradication, around institutional change, around changing policies and legislation. If you really want to get involved, that's how you can really be of help. Because the other stuff is really good, it's wonderful, it's feel good, it's temporary for that moment, and then we go on. And I think that's really where the ongoing educational process of a community who really wants to help goes on. We're going to take a small pause and break. When we come back, we're going to pick up the thing that people have asked me about more than anything else in the last few months. Now that the underpass that we all saw under 59, the homeless encampment is gone, and now we see homeless kind of spread out in different places around the city, but they all have tents. And they think that they're having the tent, and people who say, well, isn't it great that they have tents? Well, I want to talk about the tents. The tents are a wonderful thing, but it's still a temporary thing. And someone even asked me, he said, not only are they tents, they're really good tents. So whoever donated the tents is a wonderful thing. But we need to talk about that because, again, you have this vision. And I always think it's the vision connecting with the cognitive, the affective, behavioral parts of understanding homelessness at a deeper level. Homelessness has a lot of visual things with it. But I want to go with Oskar and dive deeper beyond the visuals and talk about what's really happening, because I think that's what's important. Please stay tuned and we'll be right back.
This is Mac. She's ready to build herself a house and a business. But first, she's building her resume with a construction certification from Houston Community College. HCC, for everyone, anytime. Meet Wally. He's a single dad. He's also a role model for his 5-year-old son, going back to school with him. This time, Wally's going to Houston Community College for a second career. HCC, for everyone, anytime.
As many of you know, I had the privilege and honor of being the president and CEO of Search for the Homeless a few years ago, maybe about 10, 12 now, somewhere in there, maybe a little more. I got to know a lot of those wonderful clients, as we called them at the time, patrons of Search, who really developed into being friends. And a lot of them, I got to learn their story and their journey firsthand. Why they're on the street, what led them to be on the street, what led them to be homeless, And I can tell you through my own stories and testimonials from those human beings, many times it's not what people think. Homelessness is an interesting, very complex situation. We say many times, many people are just one step away, one paycheck away from being homeless. Doesn't take much as you think to end up being homeless. A little alcohol, a little drugs maybe, a little loss of job, a death in the family. You go through your savings, you then stay with relatives, and you wear out your welcome sooner or later with your relatives, and then you go to friends and you live with them for a while, and then you wear out your welcome, and the next place you find yourself is on the street. And then, of course, there are the mental issues and many, many mental concerns and mental health issues. But we see some things changing. We see homelessness going down. The annual count every year by the Coalition for the Homeless is getting less and less. We're doing wraparound services now. We're making sure that we have caseworkers involved. The veteran population, as we're talking with Oskar, and we'll continue in the next segment here, is really, really going down because of the things available to the vets and able to access them in a many deep way. The generosity and compassion of the Houston community when it comes to the homeless only keeps increasing. You can tell it by just driving around the city and looking at the tents. And the tents have popped up here and there, and the tents are really wonderful tents. They're great tents. If you're a camper, you recognize the little logo on most of those tents. They're expensive tents, they're sturdy tents, and many of the homeless who've received them are happy to be there. Johnny, one of the young men I met at Search, who comes to the Houston Public Library most days, and I work with the Houston Public Library on their civic engagement and critical conversation series. They're there every day, many of the same faces and people that you've seen, that I've seen over the last 10, 15 years. That's the population that doesn't want to get off the street, will never get off the street in some ways. Johnny was telling me he has one of these tents now. For Johnny, you'd swear he just won the lottery and have $1 million. He's happy. He loves his tent. He loves being able to have his own place, as he says. And he is content in a way that you have to respect that he doesn't want to be off the street. He's not going to get off the street. He has some mental issues, but they're mild mental issues. The only time Johnny becomes a challenge sometimes when he's off his meds. So we make sure that he always has his meds with him. So the veteran, the next phase of this homeless thing is what I want to talk to Oskar about. The tents are slowly disappearing. That number is going down because of wonderful services. The veteran population is definitely going down. Where do you see this next kind of few years going as we move this issue and bar forward?
Well, we'll most definitely see the encampments within the city decreasing. There are a lot of factors that have played to that. One is most definitely the availability of affordable housing. And those programs that are actively going into the encampments, case managing the homeless and bringing them out from underneath the bridges and in the encampments and into housing.
So, and that has really to do, the key word there is the case management.
Case management,
To really be able to connect all the dots, all the resources, all the help available, and do it in a seamless kind of way.
Yes, because every individual, as many tents as you see out there, there are even more homeless because one tent can house anywhere from 4 to 5 people. And each one of those people is a different case. They're not all the same. So that case manager, they're having to deal with so many different, what we call barriers. You know, it could be criminal backgrounds, mental health, you know,
Very true.
experience in employment. It's very hard to get jobs still these days if you don't have all these, you know, experiences or large gaps in unemployment.
And the Houston WorkSource is really trying to work with the homeless vets and with the regular vets on the employment piece, because you said it gets very complicated without that history.
Yes, and in veteran services, I mean, we have specific programs for veterans for employment.
Right.
So that's been a big help as well.
You know, the Houston Public Library that I mentioned earlier, the daily population of the homeless that come to the library, the Central Library downtown, a wonderful group of people really trying to access their own lives and have mobility and have flexibility and freedom. And they get on the computers and they really access the computers and they're looking for jobs. They're looking for jobs. They're trying to figure out how they can do it. The inability for many of them is that same thing that you know better than I can talk about, the lack of having a permanent address or having an address period.
Right.
Really, that barrier alone is a major one to get over. That hurdle is a major one to get over.
Right, and so like agencies like ours, we have a service center downtown.
Right.
All of our homeless
We can use
veterans
that.
utilize that address to
Right,
get
right.
their mail and
Right.
things like that. That's very important.
It is
yes.
very important. So what do you see, in the little time we have left, let's just project a 5-year window. What do we see in the next 5 years when it comes to pertaining to the homeless?
What I see in the next 5 years is a deeper involvement of Houston's local community. I believe that Houston is becoming more aware of the reality of the homeless population, but also gaining more education and understanding on why that individual is homeless, and that's been the most important thing. So in 5 years, I see Houstonians having a better understanding of the person that is under
So
the
the more we
bridge.
can aid that education and awareness, the more we can aid that understanding of the homeless, that through educating the population, the civic engagement kind of thing, the better off we're all going to be.
Yes.
Now, somebody asks always, the question always comes up at some point when you talk about homeless, will the homeless always be with us?
Yes.
And that's just, we have to understand that.
Yeah. Every day someone will become homeless. Like you mentioned earlier, it can be a variety of things. You lost your job.
Yep.
You've lost your housing. There could have been a death in the family.
Right.
And that was, a number of things, of why people become homeless. Look at natural disasters.
Yes, yes.
After Harvey, a number of veterans called.
Yep.
They didn't know what to do.
Right.
Displaced for the first time.
And a single parent, male or female, who's trying to raise 2 or 3 children on a part-time job or a minimum wage job, and they get laid off, there's really nowhere to go. There's no cushion. Every school year, beginning of every school year, HISD chronologues really well, and they find out usually about a couple of months into the school year of the students living in their cars, of the homeless population among the students, because their mother lost her job, and their mother just went through a divorce and then lost her job, and she was already just working minimum wage job, and you can't survive on a minimum wage job in Houston. And that number seems to always be there. Every year in the beginning of the school year, there's a fixed number. Well, that's things we were talking about earlier. That's just the reality of life. Things happen, right? And so the question, I think, going forward as we educate the community, homeless will always be with us, is to try to do as much as we can to minimize the numbers.
Yes.
It's always going to be a certain population. Because of the mental health issues, they're going to be as serious a certain population because they don't want to get off the street. They want to be, they're able to cope, survive, even thrive in many ways, but they have to be left alone in their own environment, and they're happy.
Yep.
And I think what I've come to realize is people say, well, how can you be homeless and be happy? Trust me, I know some homeless people that are much happier than people who are stressed out about this and that, stressed out about their job, stressed out, they got no worries, they're carefree. They're under the sun and skies and the moon and stars every night and just as happy as they can be. So the question is what we need to do to educate those who want to get off by providing more services, more case managers, more wraparound, more resources. And at some point, one of the things I think the city is going to have to do, maybe a joint city-county thing, we need a facility, a larger facility somewhere. Do we not? For showering, for washing clothes, for...
I do believe that we need more access for
Yeah.
services.
Yeah.
Just to let you in on
Right.
I have one shower, one washer, one dryer. I service nearly 100 veterans a day.
And you can do that.
And we can do that.
So it's really not the size, it's the availability.
Yeah. Now, if we had a larger facility
Okay,
and
right.
we could wash more clothes,
Okay.
we could shower more.
So
clothes.
as we look straight into the camera, both he and I, give him another washer and dryer, give him another shower. That can't be that hard to do. It can't cost that much. Though people always talk about what can we do? How can I help? Here's something you can do. It's simple. This is not brain surgery. It's not expensive. It's not a lot of money. So somebody watching, contact somebody who can contribute, who can donate it tomorrow and make it happen. Those are the kind of things we've always said, Oskar, what are those practical things that can be done tomorrow?
Right.
That people keep asking, what can they do to help? It's not long-term, it's not legislation, it's not changing policy and rules, it's just the simple things of what needs to be done and who's going to do it and how is the community going to respond.
Right.
U.S. Vets, how to contact him is on the screen. Oskar Gonzalez, you know, he's doing the work of people who talk about doing, he's doing it every day, been doing it 10 years plus, really working with the population of the veterans, the homeless veteran, giving them a better life, a better opportunity. But we all can help do that and help him with the vets. We can do that for other homeless that are not veterans. It's something we all are called to do and become in this way of caring and empathy and giving back, and our turn as servant leaders to step up to the plate, to help another human being, to understand this is another human being. I've always dealt with the homeless as human beings. I never talk about them as individuals or persons because they're human beings, created by the Creator, as we all are. They're human beings. The respect that they deserve as human beings, the empathy and sympathy and help and compassion that they deserve as human beings, as we all want in our lives, is the same. There's no difference. They just happen to have fallen on hard times. Many people in our family that we know over the years has fallen on hard times. In fact, the issue of homelessness, when you really prick it, a lot of people have been temporarily homeless at one time in their life or another. Now, they may have a great success story to tell now, but when you get them telling the whole story, going back to those 3 or 4 or 5 months they had to live in their car when they were trying to get to where they are now, homelessness is not a stigma. It's not a scarlet letter. It is a reality of life, given the economic situation that we find ourselves in this country, given the level of poverty in this country, given the inability to have a living wage, the inability to have a fair, just living wage. Minimum wage jobs will not do it, simply cannot do it. And definitely for a mother, a single mother or father with 2 or 3 children, it's not going to happen. So all those things come together. Homelessness is part of the fabric. It's not a simple, separate issue. It is the fabric of society that holds all this together, and homelessness is just a part of it, a visual part of it sometimes, an uncomfortable visual part of it sometimes, but nonetheless, the reality. Oskar, thank you very much, sir. Absolutely. We're going to follow your great work at US Vets. Look forward to you joining us in future segments of Dialogue Houston as we dwell into these issues, because it is all about our common humanity and the response we have as human beings to the other human being. It's about we and us. Until then, we look forward to you joining us. As always, peace, power, and love.